Did I get you with the title?
Psych!
I couldn't help myself. Yes, I am done, but not with YouTube, with the Effects of After Effects series, and man does it feel good to say that. I just wanted to make this video to kind of recap this entire series and what I started, how I made it through the whole thing, and what I kind of learned along the way. And I polled my Instagram followers to see what questions they had, so make sure you're following me on Instagram if you want to get in on these little Q&As and some behind the scenes stuff too. But before we get to that Q&A, let me just go over some of the stats of this entire series. I made a total of 190 videos covering all 292 effects of After Effects, including CC Time Blend and CC Time Blend effects, which you can't even get without the little preset. So go watch that video if you want to know what I'm talking about. But if After Effects updates in the future and they add any more effects, you can be sure that I'm gonna create another video to cover that new effect. Those 190 videos covered 25 hours, 17 minutes, and 34 seconds, 72 minutes of which were me saying, hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial, then check out the other ones here on my YouTube channel. I recorded that end tag at the very beginning before I had published any of the videos because I knew I wanted to just use one end tag. Obviously my setup looks completely different now, but I wanted to cover all of my bases and not have to re-record that and, you know, give myself a little tag at the end of these videos. And yes, that is where most people stopped watching on every single one of these videos, which I totally get. The average video length was 8 minutes long, and the shortest video was Sharpen at a whopping 48 seconds in length. The longest video was Particle Playground, which was 1 hour and 16 minutes, just narrowly beating out CC Particle Systems 2 and CC Particle World. Which is no surprise to me. Particle systems are very complex, you can do a lot with them, and it just took a lot of time. The video with the most views by far was CC Glue Gun. I don't really know why your guess is as good as mine, why YouTube decided to start suggesting that to more people, but as of recording this video, it has over 100,000 views. So that's cool. One big thing I learned was when I posted the CC Particle World video, I also released a bunch of shorts, I think 25, to explain all of the same things just in bite-sized segments, and I posted all of those at the exact same time, and that flooded everybody's subscription feeds, which I found out you guys really do not like. I had 200 subscribers less on that day than the day before. Usually I would get around 100, 200 on a good day. So you really do not like spamming, and I get it. I learned my lesson.
That won't happen again, please forgive me.
I started publishing these videos on July 26th of 2021, but I had the idea for this series months before that. I just never got around to doing it until then. And at that point, I had recorded 40 videos. I banked them so that I would have a buffer that I could work through. And in my mind, 40 was enough to be able to get through the entire series without really losing that buffer. But it did not take long at all before all 40 of those videos were completely run out. I had no more buffer. And the problem I think that I had was that I took a lot of the easy effects, things that were really easy to explain, only took a couple minutes, and I left the really big ones for further along in the process. I realized that about halfway through, but I really should have worked on those bigger effects sooner than later, because that last week where I covered like Particle Playground and Liquefy and Shatter, those were really big videos that took a lot of explaining and a lot of examples to actually make. So I wish I would have, you know, rearranged that a little bit. But pretty much after those first 40 videos ran out, I was just constantly playing catch up, because this obviously isn't the only thing in my life. It's not the only thing I'm doing for work. So as often as I could, I would batch 3 to 5 of these videos and get them done so that I could work on something else the next day. And the weekends were killer because I didn't want to work on the weekends. I don't think I ever did record on the weekends, but I needed to obviously on Friday have Saturday and Sunday covered, and Monday, because I like to post these first thing in the morning. So usually Friday was a big recording day. The final video went up on March 3rd, but today, while I sat down to record this and get all these stats together, I realized that somehow the exposure effect never got posted. It was actually recorded, edited, had a thumbnail, it was ready to go. I just somehow missed uploading it to YouTube and it never got published. So that one went up a few days later, but technically the series was done on March 3rd. And speaking of thumbnails, I have heard you loud and clear. One of the most common comments that I got was requests for the thumbnails to actually represent what the effect I was talking about did. When I initially sat down to make thumbnails for those first 40 videos, that's exactly what I was going to do. I was trying to show exactly what that effect did on top of the thumbnail, but I quickly realized how much work that was going to be and that there was no way I could spend that amount of time making unique thumbnails for every single one of these videos and make daily videos at the exact same time. On top of that, a lot of the effects obviously don't have a very specific application. Like you can't just very obviously show what PS Arbitrary Map or Cineon Converter does on top of a thumbnail. It just wouldn't make sense. But I get it, a lot of the effects do have a very instant visual cue as to what is going on and what they do. So I am currently going through every single thumbnail and making each one as visually descriptive as possible so that everyone moving forward will have at least some kind of a visual cue as to what that effect is going to do. When I started the series back in July, I had 46,000 subscribers, and now I have 76,000 subscribers, so 30,000 more of you are now subscribed to my channel. That's amazing, thank you so much. Those numbers are massive, and I'm just so excited to have your support and your interest in learning from me, and I just can't wait to make some more content for you. Also, throughout this process, I was approached by Adam Pluff of Battleaxe, and you can watch the video of me explaining everything about that right up here, but I joined Battleaxe's team. I'm now a full-time employee there. They are basically a full-time sponsor of this channel moving forward, and I cannot wait to start making some more content that integrates Battleaxe's tools, which I just absolutely love. So a lot has happened in the last 7 months. I'm glad that the series is now complete. It feels very rewarding to have it completely done. But now let's get into some of your questions and talk about some of the things that I learned throughout creating this series. How do you know how to use all the effects? Well, I read the user guide. Believe it or not, there is an After Effects help guide that lists out not only what every single effect does in detail, but the entire application. It's a user guide and you should absolutely utilize it. I get that reading isn't that much fun, especially when it's a user manual, but if you want to know how to use something specifically in After Effects, just go up to Help, then After Effects Help, and that will launch the user guide online where you can search for absolutely any topic that you want and learn how to do exactly what you're trying to figure out. That is exactly how I learned how to use all of the effects that I had never even touched before. No, I did not just happen to know what every single one was. I didn't meticulously go through every effect and figure it out myself. I literally had the After Effects user guide bookmarked in my browser, and I would reference it almost every time that I sat down to record, because even on the effects that I knew how to use, like Shatter, there were so many aspects of it that I'd never touched and I didn't know what they did. And that especially goes for the particle generators. I had no idea how to use Particle Playground. It was one of the most confusing particle generators I had ever looked at, but now that I've actually read about it and how the controls are set up, it makes a lot of sense, and it is an unbelievably powerful particle generator with so many great features, so go check out that video if you haven't yet. Yes, it's an hour and 16 minutes long, but it is well worth your time because just like myself, you will learn everything there is to know about that effect, and so many doors will open up in your motion design workflow in making dynamic reactive graphics. It's really, really amazing what that effect can do. I know that in my recording voice when I'm making these videos, it sounds like I know exactly what I'm talking about, but that's not the case. There were a few effects where even after researching them and reading the manual and trying to find other people explaining how to use them, I was not all that confident in explaining it. I just did my best to sound like I knew what I was talking about and referencing the actual user guide and basically saying what it says. But don't have this picture in your head of me being this magical person who knows everything there is to know about After Effects. I learn things all the time. How did making the series help? Did it do what you wanted it to? Well, I was inspired by Joey Korenman, who made the 30 Days of After Effects series before really launching into School of Motion, which I'm sure many of you are aware of. If you're not, go check out that series. It's phenomenal. He made 30 really high quality tutorials in After Effects and released them on a daily schedule, and that kind of put him on the map for creating Animation Bootcamp and just launching School of Motion into what it is now. So I was inspired by that daily aspect of putting something up consistently for a long period of time, and obviously I didn't want to just copy Joey. I didn't want to make 30 more days of After Effects or 60 days of After Effects. I wanted to find a need and then fill it. And the one thing that just kept coming back to me was that there are no video series explaining every single effect of After Effects. There are videos out there that cover these effects, but they generally are how to use them to make a specific thing. And I didn't want that. I wanted a visual user guide because I was very aware of the After Effects user guide and I knew that you could go there and read about any effect and learn about it, but I didn't see any resources online that visually showed you how these effects work, what the controls do, and how you might use them. I did find Justin Odisho's channel, which some of you had commented and pointed out that he made this series called Every Effect Explained, and I actually didn't find that until after I had started making my own series, but he did a much higher level overview of each effect category and just kind of talked through every effect. It's still a great series, you should go check it out, but I wanted a deep dive into every effect, where every single property was talked about and you knew every single thing about that effect by the time that you were done watching the video. And I obviously wanted it to be very searchable. I want you to be able to type in any effect name, After Effects, on Google or on YouTube, and my video come up, which from what I can tell is exactly what's happening. And I hope that that continues on into the future, that this becomes a resource for anyone learning After Effects and wondering how certain effects work, why certain things don't work the way that you want them to, and helps people just be able to approach this program with a little less fear and be able to just start making things and having fun with these effects. So yes, this series is doing what I want it to, and I hope that it continues on into the future. What was the most frustrating effect to grasp and talk about? Man, that's a great question. There were a handful of effects that really stumped me, but the one that I knew from the very beginning that was gonna be really hard for me to explain because I just couldn't wrap my head around it, and I kinda still can't, was CC kernel, which is a convolution kernel effect. I've done a ton of research. I realize that is something that people need to know how to do, and it is the kind of foundation of how a lot of other effects are built.
But it's just so different.
It's a different way of thinking about how to manipulate an image, and I don't fully understand it. The user manual on Cycor's website, which is the company that made this effect, basically says, if you know what a convolution kernel is, then you know what this effect is. So I was kind of stumped with that one. Which effect surprised you the most? Well, definitely foam. That one totally blew me away. I had never really used it before, and it is an incredibly powerful particle generator. I think the reason I never used it was because foam. How often do you need to make foam? I never thought to use it, and once I learned what it did, that was really cool. Another one that was really impressive was CC hair. That was one of those effects that I always just thought, this is never gonna go in my workflow, it's just pointless. But what really unlocks the power of that effect is using a hair fall map. When I learned how that worked, that just opened up a lot more possibilities. So go check out both of those videos if you haven't watched them yet. Another one that was really hard for me to grasp was actually multiple effects. I put them all into one video. That was arithmetic, compound arithmetic, blend, calculations, and channel combiner. These are all very math-oriented effects, and that's something that I'm not a huge fan of. But quickly after posting that video, people were commenting and telling me how they use the calculations effect. And I've seen some other tutorials of people using it as well, so it's not useless, and I probably sound pretty pessimistic in that video, but that was just because I was frustrated. I didn't know how to make use of these effects. And just the entire color correction category, it is massive. It's the second longest effects category, and it just wasn't that much fun. I'm more of a 2D animator in After Effects and making motion graphics, and color correction tools aren't used all that often in my workflow, beyond things like levels and curves, those kinds of effects. So having to go through color balance and color balance HLS and auto contrast and auto color and all of those effects was really a big grind for me, and I was very happy to be done with that category. Which effect do you think you'll use most often in your workflow after making the series? That one's really tough. The ones that I've already talked about where I was just kind of surprised at how powerful they are, those are definitely gonna show up more, but if I had to just pick one, I'd probably say Particle Playground, just because that is a massive resource that I have completely ignored for the last, 15 years of using After Effects, just because I didn't really understand it. And I didn't want to take the time to learn how it worked. Don't make that same mistake. Which effect do you think people are least likely to use even after watching your Effects of After Effects series? Without a doubt, Fractal. Why is that effect even in After Effects? I still don't understand it. I had people commenting, explaining that that is kind of like a problem that engineers and people who code and things like that will figure out how to do, and the best guess is that because it was something that could be done, it was done and it was added into After Effects. And that may be true, but I have no idea what you would use Fractal for in After Effects other than saying, there's a fractal. On top of that, it crashes After Effects every time that I try to use it. I don't know if that's a multi-frame rendering thing, some kind of media cache thing, but my version of After Effects hates that effect, and so do I. How did you power through it? And this kind of goes along with, did you ever lose motivation and want to stop? I never lost motivation. I set out to do it. I knew that it was gonna be a lot of work and I wanted to complete it. So I never felt like I was in a low point where I just really didn't want to do this anymore and felt like giving up. But there were definitely points where I was like, man, I've gotta get 3 more videos up so I can make it through the weekend. And that was kind of annoying to be at that point. I really wish that I could have had that buffer so that there was never a time where I was like, I have to record something right now or else I'm not gonna make it. Honestly, one of the things that kept me going was the response that I got from the videos. I got regular comments from a lot of regular commenters. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for that. I literally read every single comment on every single video. It was a daily thing for me. I probably spent a little bit too much time on the analytics, just kind of poring over the numbers and seeing the comments. But that really did help keep my motivation going. And I had a small group of friends that I would talk to on a Slack channel. Andrew, Kevin, Bo, Logan, and Marriott. Thank you so much for all of your encouragement, for allowing me to vent someplace and to express my frustrations, ask for help, and ask for input. You were incredibly supportive throughout the entire series, and I really appreciate you. How do you make educational, practical, yet fun After Effects videos? That is a great question. I think my whole philosophy, ever since I started teaching, has always been make videos that you want to watch. And for me, that's just 100% content. I don't want anything extra. I just want to learn what I came to this video for. So I hope that that's reflected in this series and that you can pick out any one of these videos, watch that little 7-second intro, and then be straight into the content and walk away from that video learning what you came there to learn. Content is king over everything else. If there's a chance for humor, I try to interject it in there, but I don't think I'm that funny, so I try to keep that at a minimum. I just want you to be happy that you came to watch one of my videos. What was your favorite effect to cover? That was probably the very last one in the series, which was Liquify. It's just so much fun. I've been using it a lot in my videos lately. I hope that you guys think it's as funny as I do, but that one has just always been special to me. I've loved making liquefied faces and distortions with that effect. How do you know which effects to use to make something specific? Well, this honestly comes down to experience, and that's partially why I made this entire series, so that you can know what effects do and start using them to do what you want them to. If you understand what an effect does, then you can start to be creative and think about, well, what if I combine it with this effect and then stack it on top of this one? And the series is done, it's there. You can watch the whole thing now and learn about any effect you want. And in some of the videos you saw in the title that it said the effect name plus something else. And those were videos where I kind of ran with stuff. A lot of the examples that I came up with were on the fly. And that's really where I start to have a lot of fun, because I do, in my head, on the fly, start thinking, oh, what if I combine this effect with this effect? CC Composite shows up all the time because that allows you to just duplicate your original layer on top of the effect stack and blend it in different ways. The Find Edges effect is a great example of this. I kind of just went off the rails halfway through that video after explaining how Find Edges worked. I just had this thought in my head of like, oh, I could probably make this kind of like a neon overlay outline glowy thing on top of this picture, and I just ran with it, and what you saw is what I came up with while I was recording. Once you learn how to use these certain effects, it becomes a little bit more apparent how to combine them to create some really cool results. How does it feel to be done? Man, does it feel good. I'm not gonna lie, I'm so glad to be finished with this series. It was hanging over my head for 7 months, and now that it's done, it's like a weight off of my shoulders. At the same time, the couple of days after that final video going up felt very strange that I didn't have anything else to post that day. There was nothing really, pulling me in any single direction. It felt kind of empty, which is weird, but that's why I'm excited to just keep making more content on this channel. And finally, the question that got asked multiple times, what's next? There's been lots of suggestions and requests in the comments of my videos asking me to cover third-party tools, and I'm just gonna say right now, that's probably not going to happen. I have no plans of doing the entire Trapcode suite or any other third-party suite, and the reason why is because the people selling those tools have extensive video training libraries. You don't need me to explain how to use those effects. You can go learn directly from the manufacturer. Plus, I'd have to buy a lot of third-party tools in order to do all that. I've also gotten a request to just make every single expression into a video, and that would be an unbelievably large amount of content that is just not likely to happen. So don't hold your breath on that one. I think what's next for me is to just get into more of a routine of making regular content that is a little bit more of a traditional feel for tutorials. I want to make some nice educational content on a regular basis for you to learn from here on YouTube, as well as making Skillshare classes. I've had one in my back pocket for a while that just has not been able to get made because of this series. It just took up too much of my time. So Skillshare content is still going to be happening. I do have a lot of ideas for different types of videos here on my YouTube channel that I want to experiment with. If you have anything that you want to see specifically, always feel free to leave comments. I wanna hear the ideas that you have and the kind of things that you'd actually like to see. But with that, I just wanna finally say thank you so much for following along and supporting me on this journey as I've created this Effective After Effects series. I am just so happy with the way that it turned out. I'm so glad that it seems like it's actually helping people learn After Effects and making it less intimidating. That's my hope for it to continue on into the future that way. But I am very glad to be closing the book, the final chapter of this series, and being able to move on to new things and not having green thumbnails anymore moving forward. But hey, you'll always know it's one of my videos. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all of your support, and I'll see you in the next one. This video is over 20 minutes long. Nobody's gonna watch this.